What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping in. The car is already in the air because we just finished doing the rear diff fluid change, and now it is time to change the fluid for the transmission. And I gotta say, I'm a little bit nervous because I have a sneaking suspicion the previous owner never changed it. In 100,000 plus miles, I just can't imagine that previous owner did it, just based on the condition of some of the other components in this car, the engine bay, the brakes, the tie rod ends, the sway bar end links. I just don't think they kept up on the maintenance very well. So let's see what we can find. A few items you're gonna need today to complete the task. Obviously you need 4 quarts of automatic transmission fluid. Yes, even though this is a 6-speed manual transmission car, it still takes automatic transmission fluid. They also say prior to 2001 you should not use synthetic transmission fluid unless it's AMSOIL, but this is a 2002, so I'm not worried about it anyway. We should be good to go with the AMSOIL. You're going to also need a 1/4-inch drive socket wrench. I don't know why they make the plugs different than the rear diff, but it just takes a square 1/4-inch. So just using the wrench itself will work just fine. You'll see that in a minute. And you need a fluid transfer pump, something like this. I'll put a link in the description below. They're relatively inexpensive, between $12 and $15. You can get them at O'Reilly's or any auto parts store, but Amazon's a good place for them. They work pretty good, but they are fairly cheaply made, so they only last a couple of uses. But how often are you changing rear diff fluid or automatic transmission fluid anyway? You're obviously going to need an oil drain pan and some paper towels. From rubber gloves probably come in handy as well. As always, guys, make sure you check the links in the description below for some of the products and parts and tools that I use in this process today. Aside from not trusting that the previous owner had ever changed the transmission fluid, it's feeling a little bit clunky to me. It's a little bit notchy because of the MGW short throw shifter anyway, but the reverse gear in particular is a little bit tough. I'm always feeling like I have to force it into gear. So I'm hoping that the transmission fluid will do the trick. On the driver's side of the transmission, you will see the fill hole. You're going to want to make sure you open that first. You don't want to drain all the fluid, then not be able to get the fill hole opened up. On the passenger side of the car, toward the rear of the transmission, you can see the drain plug right there. This transmission fluid looks terrible. I'm surprised it shifts into gear at all. I told myself I wasn't going to get dirty or make a mess doing this, damn it. Transmission fluid is supposed to be sort of a red color, right? This is completely dirty swamp water brown color. This is bottle number 3. We just pump it in until it starts leaking out of the fill hole, and we'll know it's full. Time for bottle number 4. One point to note is that if you're changing fluids in your C5 Corvette, or any vehicle for that matter, you want it to be level. I'm fortunate enough to have quick jacks, which makes this job very, very easy. People will be tempted just to jack up the rear end of the vehicle and complete this task, but that's not a good idea. You run the risk of overfilling your transmission. Got about 3.5 quarts in there. I'm not sure what the actual capacity is, but 3.5 quarts did it. And we'll get it on the ground, take it for a cruise around the block, make sure everything's good. through all the gears really nicely. The one I really was concerned about was reverse. Prior to this point, you get it over and you really kind of have to click it in, but it's actually going in super smooth right now without trying. It's amazing what trans fluid will do. So smooth in reverse, I love it. Oh, so good. Man, I am totally relieved now. It feels like a totally different car. Did you see that trans fluid? It was like brown and gross and super thin. The check engine light reminds me that it's time to get this thing tuned, finally. I've put several hundred miles on it now since having the BTR Stage 2 cam installed, so the break-in period is over. It's time for a fresh oil change, and then we'll get this thing on the dyno, so I hope you guys will stick around for that. It could be because of the fact that the battery's essentially dead too. Not too bad of a job, guys, unless you're like me, a little bit clumsy. Then you might get some transmission fluid down your arm and on the floor, but no big deal. I think you can handle it nonetheless. On a side note, I'm not a professional, I'm not a mechanic, so just take this simply as a documentation of how I was able to complete the task. Take on this project at your own risk. Yes, sir, there's a lot more coming for the C5 Corvette, guys, and there's a lot more coming for the other vehicles on the channel as well. And don't forget, it is a speed culture channel in general, so there's a lot of automotive content here. So if you're interested in automotive type content, please consider subscribing if you haven't already. Appreciate you watching this one. Appreciate your support up to this point. Thanks again for watching, guys. See you in the next one.